WFLA Now will begin momentarily. WFLA Now will begin momentarily. Streaming live on WFLA Now, powered by 1-800-ASK-GARY. Here's JB Buno.
Fallout from the takeover of the U.S. Capitol Wednesday and Joe Biden's win certified by Congress, as now Senator Chuck Schumer from New York is calling for the removal of President Trump from office. We're going to be featuring comments from you, our viewers, starting now on WFLA Now. Hey there, folks. JB Buno here with you live in the WFLA Now Stream Center, alongside my battery mate, WFLA political anchor Evan Donovan there on the right side of your screen. The last 36 hours has contained enough political theater for most months or most entire years here in the United States Capitol. Everything that has unfolded, we want to hear from you at home. We're going to get you the very latest here with Evan in just a moment, but we want to hear from you. We're running an interactive poll that we're going to be talking about here in a moment, but if you use the hashtags that you see underneath our names here, hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyEvan in the Facebook Live comment section, we're going to be featuring your comments in about 3, 4, 5 minutes time. So start filing in your hashtag HeyJB comments. We want to hear from you at home. Your hashtag HeyEvan comments, we want to hear from you. We'll be throwing them up here on screen. But first, Evan, Senator Chuck Schumer calling on Vice President Mike Pence to invoke the 25th Amendment.
Yeah, joining a growing contingent, actually, on both sides of the aisle. Small, obviously, number of Republicans, but a growing number of Democrats. And it shouldn't be overlooked that there are a number of Republicans calling for the 25th Amendment, including Representative Adam Kinzinger and several others. Several cabinet officials have resigned. One of the White House chief of staff, or former acting chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, has decided to step down. So there's a lot out there right now about what could happen in the next 2 weeks. I think some of the guiding principles that we should think about. First of all, the House has suspended and is not in session. The Senate will not be back in session until the 19th. So both of them are now in recess, and that could affect whether or not they could even entertain the 25th Amendment. If Vice President Mike Pence wanted to take that step and had the backing of the majority of the cabinet, which is in doubt, I'm not sure that really those votes are there, then he could initiate a process that could take the president out. But it's important to remember the 25th Amendment wouldn't stop the president from running again in 2024. And I think that is really part of what people are concerned about here, particularly politicians, that, you could actually give him and his supporters more ammunition if you were to try to remove him from office right now and possibly lead the way to him running again in 2024, which he has said that he may do. So while I think it's interesting that Schumer has called for the 25th Amendment, I just don't see it as a viable option, particularly with Congress in recess, with only 2 weeks left in his term. It just doesn't seem like something that would happen that quickly. We're going to get to our poll here in just a moment. In fact, you know what? Let's throw it up here on screen so that we can show you what we're talking about. Should Twitter join Facebook in banning President Trump's account until January 20th? We're going to be talking about what has happened to President Trump's social media accounts here in just a moment. But I want to get to some of the early hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyEvan comments we have coming in. Kara, Lynn, Brittany, I see your comments. We're going to be flashing them up here on screen in the minutes ahead. But let's get to this comment here from Kara Nicole Hofacker here, as soon as I can animate it here on screen. And it's a comment that reads, there it is. Whoa, hold on. It's almost there, folks. That's
ongoing poll results there. So very curious to hear what folks have to say. There it is.
Poll results.
Kara Nicole Hofacker, #KJB. It's a nightmare on both sides. With so much hate, we should all choose to be kind despite someone's political beliefs. $0 to be kind. Wake up, America, is the comment from Kara. Let's get to what's unfolding with these social media accounts here, Evan. President Trump not able to use his Twitter account at the moment, nor his Facebook account either.
Yeah, long statement from Zuckerberg, CEO of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, coming out today and saying that the president's Facebook and Instagram accounts will be basically suspended indefinitely, but for a minimum of the next 2 weeks. So between now and January 20th, the president will not be able to use Facebook or Instagram. Frankly, that's not really his social media platform of choice.
Right.
And so I think a lot of people are looking at Twitter right now and trying to figure out, what are you going to do? Because that's obviously how the president communicates with the world. It is his preferred platform. He is suspended right now, but that 12-hour suspension is set to come up here pretty shortly. So it's
right. Will Twitter
Twitter join Facebook and Instagram? Because if Twitter bans the president's account until January 20th, boy, I mean, that really would be a very significant move and something that we haven't seen them do. Certainly nothing that strong in the entire history of President Trump being on Twitter. There was a tweet last night,
and I have it
via a lieutenant. I say lieutenant. I mean, one of the president's top advisors. Actually, Dan Scavino is in charge of his social media. He is the guy that tweeted a statement from the president via Dan's account. You see it on your screen there. That is a statement by President Donald J. Trump. He says, quote, "Even though I totally disagree with the outcome of the election and the facts bear me out, nevertheless, there will be an orderly transition on January 20th. I have always said that we would continue our fight to ensure that only legal votes were counted. While this represents the end of the greatest first term in presidential history, it's only the beginning of our fight to make America great again." So, the president still speaking through a surrogate here. This is late last night. In fact, I want to just kind of go to the tweet because I retweeted it. And I want to say it was maybe sometime 3 o'clock in the morning, something like that.
Yeah, we have the timestamp here.
About 3:30, somewhere around there.
And it's worth noting here, too, that we're talking so much about President Trump's accounts being suspended. He's still going to have an opportunity. He's still going to have a method to get whatever statement that he wants out there, whether it's coming from Dan Scavino, whether it's coming from Kayleigh McEnany's account. There are other means in which he can get. Yeah, I mean, the Twitter. There was some talk about whether or not he was going to open up new accounts, if there were going to be pop-up accounts, and it was going to become a game of whack-a-mole for Twitter or Facebook. But in the short term, I would imagine that's probably not going to be happening. But yeah, what happens with Twitter now later on today when the 12 hours expires? Is that account going to be reinstated, and is he going to be able to reach out to his 80 million or so followers on Twitter? Yeah,
almost 90 million now. Let's not forget, too, that there is a business calculation here. And I don't mean to be cynical, but this is the way that business works. President Trump brought a lot of value to Twitter when he began running for president in 2015. He is the most prolific tweeter of any politician that we know, certainly in the United States. I'm not saying that there are others who tweet for tweet might out-tweet him. I'm just saying, I don't think any other politician is as known for being so prolific on Twitter as President Trump. Twitter benefited greatly from the fact that President Trump was using it as his platform of choice. Twitter was in a little bit of trouble back in 2015, business-wise. I mean, they were trying to reinvent themselves, trying to keep up with Facebook, Instagram. At the time, Snapchat was big. The platform has done very well since President Trump has been in office. Again, I'm not saying that is going to drive their decision, but it is a business. They have to make money. And if they didn't have President Trump on their platform, there's no doubt they'd have a ton less interaction than they would if he was on their platform. So perhaps they ban him until the 20th and then say, okay, now you're a private citizen. Now you're subject to everybody else, the rules that everybody else is. Perhaps they take a stronger move than that, but I'm just pointing out that there are business implications here that go beyond what we think about communications, what we think about social media, what we think about politics in 2021, and certainly those things will have a factor.
Absolutely. And also worth noting, just to rewind, as a reminder, Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg announced that the Facebook account for Donald Trump has been suspended indefinitely pretty much through the transition of power. And we have that statement for you on WFLA.com and the WFLA app. Twitter has a 12-hour ban in place right now, and as Evan noted, that is going to be lifted here. This is a Facebook Live. Interesting here. We're on Facebook to our Facebook audience. We're on Facebook Live with a Facebook Live interactive poll here asking you, should Twitter join Facebook in banning President Trump's account until January 20th? And you see here, we are really close to 50-50 here, Evan. We got 4,300 plus votes that have come in the last 5 minutes.
Yeah, and again, I want to just make sure that people at home understand. So Zuckerberg has said that the president's the president's Facebook and Instagram accounts are banned indefinitely, suspended indefinitely, but said specifically in his statement that means at least for the next 2 weeks. So you will not hear from President Trump on Facebook or Instagram.
And I think that includes the day of the inauguration.
It does. It would if he means it as a full 2 weeks. So you won't hear from him before Inauguration Day. But again, as I pointed out, that doesn't really matter. How many people go to President Trump on Facebook? That's just not really his preferred platform. So
Twitter is the place.
So that's really where all eyes are on Jack Dorsey and the Twitter management team right now to find out what they are going to do about the president.
I want to show something here on our screen while we have a peak audience here on our WFLA app, WFLA.com, and our social media platforms here. We're going to get rid of the poll results. We'll come back to the poll results here in a little bit, but this is a really important thing. Also worth noting that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi and President-elect Joe Biden they're going to be speaking at around 1:30 as we understand it.
Not together, separate events, but we are monitoring both.
Yeah, so what we're going to try to do here, folks, is going to try to show you this person of interest. This has been put out by law enforcement in Washington, D.C., by the Metropolitan Police there. And let's get rid of the poll results here just so that we can show this here to you. But this is who they're currently looking for from the turmoil yesterday, Evan. They've put out all of these screenshots. These individuals are going to be held accountable now. And as I understand it, there's a tip line that has been created so that if anybody recognizes any of these individuals, to call the tip line so that they can be identified, and then a warrant can be put out for their arrest. You can see there that the charge would be unlawful entry, and my goodness, unlawful entry to the U.S. Capitol in Washington, D.C.
The FBI has set up a tip line. They also have a website where you could submit your information. So if you have any, you should do that, obviously. From what I understand, there were at least 52 arrests. That's an hours-old statistic, so I'm sure it's more by now. But at least 52 arrests is what I had read as of a couple of hours ago. So, but clearly they are looking for more information on all of these people, and it looks like many of them are going to be held to account.
And this isn't and no knock on 7-Eleven, but this isn't your 7-Eleven surveillance camera that's grainy, black and white, and looks like it's from 1991. These are pretty high res, full in color, and we're getting a really good look at some of the individuals that just really crossed the line yesterday when they stormed the U.S. Capitol. So information on WFLA.com and the WFLA app as to how you can contact law enforcement. As we understand it, there are people that stormed the U.S. Capitol that are from the state of Florida. So we knew of people that were making that ahead of time. We knew of people that were making the drive from Florida to our nation's capital. So
and
no
really,
surprise
if you watch the videos, I mean, there are some really scary videos of them just abusing police. Just
going in with pipes and
hitting police, assaulting police officers. I mean, it wasn't peaceful when it got to that point. I guess earlier in the day, obviously, it seemed peaceful when people were gathering, but certainly it wasn't when they got to the Capitol.
Want to show you that House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is going to be speaking here at approximately 1:30, 15 minutes from now. So what we're going to do is we're going to spend the next 15 minutes talking about your comments. This is a sounding off board after one of the days in American history that we're all going to remember. We're probably going to have to tell our kids and our grandkids about one day. This is a day that we want to hear from you and your response to what has unfolded over the last 36 hours. A lot of political drama going from not just the storming of the U.S. Capitol building, but into the night, into the certification of the electoral votes, the determination, the perseverance by Congress to continue to continue the count into the night and certify the election victory for President-elect Joe Biden. And then the statement coming out, this statement coming out overnight, with President Trump admitting that there will be an orderly transition on January 20th. So what we want to do now is we want to hear from you
Sorry,
folks.
before we go to the people's comments, I just want to go back to that slide because we read this out, but obviously we try to provide context to you whenever we bring you information. The facts do not bear the president out. Republicans and Democrats, the people who certify election results on both sides of the aisle, have certified that this election happened without fraud. I'm sure that we are going to find that there were some cases of fraud. I mean, when I say some, I'm talking about less than 100 total nationwide. That would be a lot. I mean, there are databases that keep the information on election fraud results. The Heritage Foundation keeps one. It's a conservative organization. You could look in the last 5 years and you're not going to find, you pick any one election, there's no way you'll find more than that number of fraudulent votes. It just doesn't happen. I mean, think about the way that it would have to happen, the people putting themselves in harm's way, like they would go to jail for a felony for committing voting fraud. It just doesn't happen. Now, of course, there are going to be some cases. We heard on that phone call over the weekend where the president pressured, possibly illegally, it certainly seems like illegally, Georgia election officials to overturn the results in that state. He was alleging that there were 5,000 dead people that had voted. Secretary of State Brad Raffensperger corrected him on the call and said they've looked into these allegations and they have found two. There were two supposedly dead people have voted, and those investigations, I'm sure, are still ongoing. So you are going to see some cases of fraud or some people who tried to vote using dead people's names, but certainly it wasn't enough to overturn the election results in any state, let alone all of these states. So I do want to make sure that we fact check what you're seeing on the screen there. The facts do not bear the president out. He is wrong. He has been lying about this since the election ended. He lost fair and square. That's where we are. We are moving forward in this country with the next administration coming in. And unfortunately, it looks like the president's actions really might have cost Republicans, in terms of his party, certainly possibly cost them control of the Senate. Him continually going after the Georgia election results, having that phone call become public over the weekend. He called him 19 times to try to influence him to change the election results. And these are Republicans, let me remind you. These are people who are in his party. So, he has been in a posture of setting things on fire since he lost the election. And it certainly seems like that is going to continue as long as he is in office.
Let's get to some of your comments here in the Facebook Live comment section here. For those of you who have been with us here before on WFLA Now, you know how this works. You can use hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyEvan in the yellow sections that you see here on your screen. And we're going to start to bring up some of your comments. I'll keep my eye here on the Facebook Live comment section. As a reminder, we don't throw up any comments that contain inappropriate language, any comments that are inflammatory, any comments that contain information. Right. Yeah, let's keep it clean. Keep it clean is pretty much the short way of saying it. Let's get to Lynn Gaskins here. Lynn, thanks for being patient. Hashtag HeyJB. Time to invoke the 25th Amendment. I'm a physician and know when it's time for involuntary commitment.
We just talked about that, Lynn. I mean, certainly there are a lot of people calling for that, particularly on the left. I get it. It just doesn't seem like that is likely to happen, given that there's less than 2 weeks left in his term. Congress is out of session, and again, it doesn't prevent him from running again, which I think is what Democrats are most concerned about. Yeah, it was Kara's comment again from earlier. How about Brittany Hurd, hashtag KGB? Why should Trump suffer because Americans don't know how to act like human beings and not animals? I think it's important to remember that if you were watching President Trump's rally, and I watched every word of it yesterday, the one that began the Save America March rally on the Freedom Plaza there, at the end of that rally, he called for this march specifically. He told people, let's go to the U.S. Capitol. And that's what began this movement that started from near the White House down to the U.S. Capitol building. So this is something that was called on by President Trump himself. Now, did it cross a line? Did President Trump say, hey, everybody storm into the building, break windows, and really let's trash the place? That wasn't
explicitly stated by the president.
I don't think he has to specifically say that, given what he's been saying over the past couple of months. I don't think there's any doubt that he incited what happened yesterday. That doesn't make him responsible for the individual actions of those people. They're responsible for their own actions, but no question that he incited that.
Heather Stewart, #AJB. Yes, the 25th should definitely needs to be implemented immediately. Incitement of a riot by the president should be more than enough for this to be done. And again, Chuck Schumer is calling on Vice President Mike Pence to have Trump ousted from office.
Yeah, I think the other question I have about Brittany's comment was, how is Trump suffering? Was she referring possibly to the social media ban?
No, I guess what she was referring to would be the removal from office. Why should Trump be removed from office for the actions of his supporters at the rally, I think. Ashley Light, #AJB. Why can't people be kind no matter who you voted for?
Yeah, that's where we need to get more to. I mean, look, there's different ways that, I always think about this in terms of your neighborhood. Like if you were to walk up and down the street where you live, you're going to find lots of different Republicans and Democrats. You probably don't think about that when you're out walking your dog and you pass your neighbor. And, people have different approaches and ideas about how to run the country, how to get things done. But at the end of the day, we all want to be safe. We all want our kids to do well. We all are trying to get ahead in life. I think there's more that unites us than divides us, I think is the line that is really applicable in times like this. And we need to just get back to arguing about policy, because really that's what this is about. It's about policy. Like,
I miss the days when we
all want the same things. Like you just got different ways of going about doing it.
Miss the days when we were talking about stimulus checks and the $2,000 stimulus check. That was only a couple of weeks ago, but it feels like 6 months ago.
Really, it's been a long time since I think you heard, I can't remember who it was now, but it might have been McConnell on the floor last night talking about how, forgive me, I'm not positive that it was McConnell, but
we've been working a lot of long hours.
There's been a lot coming in. A Republican politician in the past 24 hours said, that look, this is obviously more about us getting away from culture wars and getting back to I think it was Representative Adam Kinzinger who said it. And he said, look, we got to get back to the Republican Party that makes the case for why you should be Republican, how you can get ahead in life, what's good about our party, he was basically just saying the culture wars haven't served them well, which is, his perspective. That's just interesting.
Michael Barr, #KJB. We need to all pull together and get America back at ease. Prayers to all. We have this virus out there that needs to be alert of citizens. Pray that we can all get along. The only reason I chuckle here in the middle of Michael's comment is because amidst all the chaos that was unfolding yesterday in our nation's capital, I think we had the most cases in Florida reported in a single day. Is that I believe that's accurate. So the pandemic is continuing to rage on regardless. We're talking about a serious report that came in yesterday about what's going on the ground here with the pandemic in Florida. So we need to keep our eyes on the ball here. All of this political drama that is attracting our gaze right now as Americans takes us away from some of the matters at hand. You were talking about policy earlier, and also the raging pandemic that continues to plague us here, even though the calendar has now crossed over into 2021.
Look at this guy right here screaming in the middle of the screen. I mean, that's a super spreader event for sure. Those people all less so outside, obviously, but certainly inside. Those people screaming at each other in close proximity is not good.
JB Buno, Evan Donovan here with you live on WFLA Now, waiting for, let's show it to you here, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi is going to be speaking sometime after 1:30 Eastern time. We're also going to be hearing from President-elect Joe Biden, his first press conference, his first comments, really his first remarks since the certification last night. So it'll be very interesting to hear from both of those two here. We're going to take you there live, but in the meantime, we're going to stay here with you live and get to your comments here on Facebook Live. Let's get to this one here from Denise Mahan, #AJB. Do you think that there will be more riots and looting because of yesterday and the White House? I'm glad that this question was asked because the temperature right now in our country is just sky high, right? I mean, we're really clearly in a dangerous spot at the moment. And the idea right now is not to escalate things further. There have been conversations that I've read online. All I've been doing is of course, reading some of the online chatter that removing President Trump from office would only incite an even more perhaps crazy response from President Trump's supporters, that it could do more harm than good, or at least that's some of the chatter that's been out there online.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great question. We really don't know. Let's hope not.
Denise, thanks for your comment. Stephanie Lent Peck, hashtag KGB, the people of the United States of America are tired of politicians, period. It does not matter if they are Republican or Democrat.
A lot of truth to that.
I think that there's political fatigue that is starting to set in. I think that there's fatigue of just overall divisiveness, right? We've seen so many commenters, people just saying, can't we all just get along, right? I mean, isn't that the age-old adage that we should be, thinking about here in 2021?
Senator Marco Rubio said something similar to what Stephanie is saying right there last night on the Senate floor when he was giving a speech. He said, look, I think Americans have gone insane on politics. We have to get back to the days when we are, arguing about the right way to do things and not, going after each other. Senator Lankford from Oklahoma, who was previously going to object to some of the election results after what happened yesterday, came back to the Senate floor, said he was not going to object, and said, look, this is this person over here. And he was just pointing randomly around the Senate chamber saying, this person here, that person there, these people, they're not my enemy. They're just fellow Americans. I disagree with them. We talk things out. We don't resort to violence.
Stephanie, thanks for your comment. Christopher Cole is up next. Hashtag HJB. And as soon as we have it, it should. There it is. Hashtag HJB. This country is so divided, so it doesn't matter who's the president. Just look what has happened the past 4 years. Evan, you want to take this one first?
I think there's a lot of truth to what he's saying. The country is very divided. Doesn't matter what the president does or who he is. If he is the wrong stripe or color, then people are going to oppose what he does no matter what. I do think, though, that what we saw over the last 4 years was very unique. We have not seen a politician like Donald Trump who was as divisive, who
invokes such an emotional response out of people, whether it's in anger and frustration, in overall disbelief. I think that no matter which side you're on, there is an emotional response that is invoked by the president and by reading some of his tweets. For some, there is a disbelief that sets in. Like, can you really believe that the president of the United States just said this? Insert tweet here. And I think that's part of the divide, is that some people are in disbelief. Some people are like, I've been waiting for a guy to be saying this, or I've been waiting for a president or a politician to be saying this all my life, and here he is now, the president of the United States.
I think there's some truth to that. I do think this president is very unique in that we haven't seen those types of responses to a guy like that. We have not seen lying on the scale that has come from the administration ever before. And so I think there's a lot of people who I agree with some of what Christopher's saying right there, but I think there's a lot of people who are ready to get back to people that you just disagree with, that you don't have a vehement reaction to your point, JB.
Christopher, really appreciate the comment. Paul Kersey is up next. Hashtag HJB. McConnell lost the Senate race by accusations of Americans not needing a stimulus. You want to hop in there on that one, Evan?
I mean, it's possible. Yeah. I mean, Paul makes a good point. McConnell and the rest of the Senate crushing. Hold on one second, folks.
Yep. Pelosi here. So hearing now, Pelosi is going to be at 2 o'clock Eastern time.
Yeah.
So that timing has stayed pretty much scheduled for about 1:30.
And here's
We expect to see him.
where we expect to see former Vice President Joe Biden.
And I'm not sure how well that audio came through there, folks. But basically, what we're hearing from our NBC News partners is that Nancy Pelosi is going to be making an announcement closer to 2 p.m. We were expecting that at 1. It's now been pushed back again. But right here, what you're looking at the center of your screen is where President-elect Joe Biden is expected to name Merrick Garland as his choice for Attorney General. That is big news. That is important. And that is an interesting, well, certainly it's important, not just because of the fact that Merrick Garland is, as the Attorney General, is one of the top 4 spots really in the cabinet, the big 4 really, they call it, Defense, Treasury, State, and Attorney General. But it's also important because many of you are recognizing that name. Merrick Garland was President Barack Obama's choice to be on the Supreme Court to replace Justice Antonin Scalia, who died early in the election year in 2016 in February. And then Garland was blocked by Senate Republicans who wouldn't even give him a hearing at any point during that year. They, of course, went back on their precedent that they set there earlier this year when Ruth Bader Ginsburg died just before the election, and Senate Republicans really quite hastily rammed through Amy Coney Barrett as the latest justice on the Supreme Court. And so Merrick Garland will get his day. He won't be
as if we needed
justice,
as if we needed another political headline. Yeah, really over the last 48 hours. He won't be a Supreme Court
justice, obviously, which I don't know, might have been his dream job. I don't know, but certainly Attorney General is not a bad consolation prize. He'll be in charge of the nation's Department of Justice and the largest legal apparatus in the country. It's an important position in the cabinet. He'll be a close advisor, I'm sure, to Joe Biden, and there will be a lot to consider on the legal front once this administration begins.
I want to show you this here, folks. The touch screen here. We can show you that we have a split screen now of Nancy Pelosi and Joe Biden's podiums. When one of them starts speaking, we believe it's going to be President-elect Biden here first. On the right side of your screen, we'll, of course, take you over to that and listen in here on WFLA Now. Nancy Pelosi, House Speaker, will likely be up next there on the left side of your screen. In the meantime, we're going to keep you here company on WFLA Now and get to some more of your comments. Evan, I know that you got reports to file for on our newscast tonight, so if you have to step away, you absolutely
I can do one more.
Can do so. Okay, let's get to some. I believe we just had. Okay, let's get to Kelly Hartmeyer Miller here. I'm going to keep your. I'm not letting you get away with just one. How about two or three? Hashtag HJB, give Trump a 2-week vacation so we can all have some peace and quiet, is the comment here from Kelly. That brings us, just remember our poll. We're talking about social media here. Let's get to our poll now, and our votes here are tabulating. And take a look at this now. Should Twitter join Facebook in banning President Trump's account until January 20th? 53% say no, 47% say yes, of the about 8,000 or 9,000 or so votes that we have received here. Again, want to keep Evan around for a couple of more comments before we lose him to his broadcast responsibilities here. How about Joy Matthews? This one for you. Hashtag, hey, Evan. The media was very quiet about potential super spreading during the summer. Double standard again. I want to make one thing clear really quickly before Evan chimes in here. On WFLA Now, when we were talking about some of the Black Lives Matter protests that were going on, some of the marches that were occurring, at least I can speak for myself, we were noting here on streams that there was all the time that not enough people were wearing masks and there was not enough social distancing going on. And as much as social reform is a noble cause and one that is overdue, and that is a movement that has so much energy behind it, we're also dealing with a public health crisis in this country, and that was noted here repeatedly on stream. And Joy, I know, is a regular viewer here on WFLA Now, and I think that you would remember that we were talking about that quite a bit here.
And I think, remember, folks, things get packaged up and then redistributed to you by people who have an agenda. That's not what we do here. I don't have any agenda. I'm interested in hearing what people think. I really love I really love this format because we get to hear directly from viewers. So I'm always really excited to hear what people are saying. But I don't think that's fair, Joy. I think you have, first of all, it's always difficult to say the media and then, who are you talking about? That's a wide array of people and organizations, and but that was actually talked about quite a bit with the George Floyd protests over the summer. Most of them were outside. There were a lot of people who wore masks during those protests, but certainly 100%, there were a lot of people who weren't wearing masks, and those, I'm sure people did get COVID from those events, and that was not good. And I think a lot of people did call that out at the time. I certainly did, JB. I know you did too.
Yep.
So I don't think that's quite fair, Joy. I think a lot of people were talking about those super spreading events. I remember there being some report midway through, like a month into those events, where some public health experts got together and said that for some reason they weren't turning out to be as super spreader events as people had thought. Perhaps I can't remember exactly what the report said, but it was because they were outside, they were always on the move, most of those protests. But nevertheless, we know people got COVID from some of those, and I'm sure that I'm sure that happened, and I'm sure it probably happened yesterday.
Federal officials, including Dr. Fauci, noted that it doesn't matter that the cause is noble.
That's right.
There is still
Fauci said doesn't matter what you're outside doing. If you're gathered together in close proximity, doesn't matter how noble the cause, it is dangerous.
Let's get to some more. One more comment here for Evan. We're going to end out on this one from Ashley Renee Rigkey, #Hey Evan. If they did use the 25th, this is a great question, and I'm glad we got to this while we have our political anchor here on the right side of your screen. Yeah. #Hey Evan, if they did use the 25th Amendment, can Trump ever run again for a second term? Really quickly, before you answer this question, can you explain just really briefly what the 25th Amendment is for our viewers that are still...
Yeah, the 25th Amendment is a mechanism by which when the president is incapacitated for whatever reason, whether he was hurt, whether he was injured, if he has to go under anesthesia for surgery, remember, the president has to be always available. I mean, our country could be attacked in a nuclear attack at any second. And so he would have to be the guy to make the call on how to respond to that. So just think about, like, I don't know, a root canal or something. Like, even if he had some sort of operation where he was going to be out for only a short period of time, there has to be a backup mechanism for who has control of the United States government. And so the 25th Amendment exists to sort of lay out the protocols for how that works. And it's complicated. We don't really have time to get into it right now. At least I don't. We could possibly do another stream on that later, JB. But basically the 25th says that, the vice president can initiate, the cabinet can initiate, as well as several other officials. Congress can also get involved, but it basically would lay out the roadmap for what happens if the president can't fulfill his duties as president. Normally, that would be for some sort of injury or mental incapacitation, which is why it would be very controversial to use it for the means for the president right now. So that is the 25th, to catch you all up. And then to your question, Ashley, it doesn't prevent him from running again, which is, I think, why a lot of people don't think it's really a viable option. He's got 2 weeks left in his term. It's not going to prevent him from running again in 2024. So what's the point? I think a lot of people are concerned that he could do damage like what happened yesterday in the next 2 weeks. But I just don't see it happening for those reasons.
This all revolves around the elephant in the room, which is, could President Trump soon even announce a run in 2024? His political future is a subject of much debate online and has been, Evan, and I know you got to go, but
well, I do have to go, but I will say this real quick. There's a lot of articles out today in political magazines and websites about whether or not this is the break that Republicans needed to sort of to shift away from President Trump. He has had a stranglehold, obviously, on the Republican Party in terms of being its, statutory head. It's, he's the guy that runs the party. He's the head of the party. The people in the party love him. 90+% support throughout most of his term from Republicans, when his overall support numbers never went above 45-50%, which is the narrowest range that any president has been in. He has never gone above 50% support, so he's never been what you would consider a popular president with a majority of the country, which is kind of interesting when you contrast that with how fervent his supporters are in their love for him. So the question about his ongoing impact in the Republican Party and whether he runs again, I think, is the most fascinating one of the next 2 weeks, certainly, and then of the next few months as we move forward here. Because I think before yesterday, I would have said he could have run again. He would have gotten the nomination. I mean, I just don't see who or what was going to stop him. Yesterday changed things a little bit. And you're seeing some Republicans now for the first time speaking out against him. Senator Tom Cotton was one of them, just kind of forcefully said, look, it's time for the president to get over it. He lost. We got to move on. You haven't heard that before until yesterday. And so who knows? It could be a more watershed moment than we even know.
Evan Donovan, our political anchor on WFLA News Channel 8. You can catch him coming up tonight on WFLA News Channel 8. Really quickly, Evan, Daisy Ruth here, our digital content producer, passing along that we have a resignation from a cabinet member, Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao, according to CNN, resigning here. So
this is why you have me around, because you know who Elaine Chao is married to, JB?
No, remind me.
she is married to the Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell.
Ah, look at that.
So Lane Chow, very interesting resignation there. And, you know, clearly you heard some strong words from McConnell yesterday on the floor going against his members making these objections about the election results. And again, think about this too. Think about what McConnell said. And if you're a Republican and you're a fan of President Trump, think about the precedent yesterday would have set that if somehow the Congress or the vice president could just toss out the votes from the states that they didn't like, what kind of precedent would that set? I mean, yes, it's a Republican now, but what if it was a Democrat? You know, you certainly wouldn't like that if you're a Trump fan, you're sitting at home right now. You know, it's just not something that we can do. And it's certainly not democratic at all. The peaceful transition of power is, you know, might be our biggest legacy on the world. So we have to protect it.
WFLA's political anchor, Evan Donovan. Tonight on WFLA News Channel 8, we'll, of course, be monitoring every 5 minutes. There's a new development. I'm getting a new note passed to me here. Oh, yeah, Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer saying that after the events at the U.S. Capitol, if the Senate Sergeant-at-Arms Stenger doesn't vacate his position by the time he becomes the majority leader, Schumer's going to fire him. So there's all of these political developments happening every 5 minutes here. It's going to be a jam-packed, action-packed day.
And MySpace is now trending on Twitter. I have no idea why.
Is it really?
Yeah, I don't know why.
Are people flocking to MySpace as a alternative? Are we going back in time, or did we just hit 88 miles an hour?
Oh, I think it's tongue-in-cheek. I think it's, hold on. It looks like
people saying,
people are saying that now that Trump is banned from Facebook, he's gonna go to MySpace, which is a joke, obviously. But yeah, it is trending.
Evan Donovan, catch him tonight on WFLA News Channel 8. We're keeping an eye here on both the office of the president-elect, as they call it, and also House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Let's go split screen here on the touchscreen. You can see both podiums are awaiting their respective Democratic leaders. Nancy Pelosi will be speaking there on the left, and Joe Biden, the president-elect, his first remarks since the count last night certified his victory, the electoral votes being counted by Congress, certifying his win, setting the stage for the transition from the the Trump administration to the Biden administration upon inauguration on January 20th. Going to get to a couple of more brief comments here that I have in the queue, and a couple, we're going to mention our poll here one more time. And then we don't entirely for sure know exactly when Biden's going to step up to the podium here. So we are going to probably step away here in just a moment. As a reminder, if you would like to have more WFLA Now live streams populate in your news feed here, folks, what you can do is you can click on the follow button that you're going to be seeing here on Facebook Live. To our Facebook Live audience, you might see the follow button here pop up. If you click on the follow button for the respective Facebook pages that we're on WFLA's Facebook page, if you're on it, you'll see your name here scrolling on the bottom of the screen. Denise, Sarah, Ahmed, David, Jerome, some of our newest WFLA Facebook fans. So if you follow us here, you'll see your name here scroll, and we appreciate all of our viewers that we get here for these interactive discussions because we want to hear from you. We go live on WFLA Now specifically so that we can have a back and forth conversation here with you as to the day's events. And no day's events caused as much of a political earthquake, if you will, than the ones yesterday in our nation's capital. Speaking of you and of course, your comments here, let's get to the next comments that are coming in here on Facebook Live. Cheryl Long, #AJB, the world is watching. If our own people can take over the Capitol, what message is this sending out? We had some commenters on WFLA Now last night from Canada saying they could not believe what they were watching and were in disbelief. I also saw the meme that people were passing along saying, excuse me, I'm busy tonight. I'm watching the season finale of the United States of America. That was also a popular meme that was being shared out last night online. So the international implications here, people are watching from Europe, people are watching from Asia, our neighbors to the north and south, Canada, Mexico, they are watching. Our territory, Puerto Rico is watching. Outside of the United States, the world is watching what has unfolded here, because while it is something that you would see maybe in a piece of video coming out of Ukraine, you wouldn't see it necessarily or expect it from the United States of America, and it has created a ripple effect of reaction really across the globe. Alexa Lee, hashtag HeyJB. That split on the poll on if Twitter should ban Trump is exactly the schism that happened yesterday. All it took is one bullhorn-headed guy, and there you see him on your screen, bullhorn-headed guy to move the mob towards breaching the Capitol. Well, Alexa, I get what you're saying. It wasn't just the guy with the bull horns on his head and the fur draped, over his head as well. Even though he is the face of this and has been the face of this on social media, it took a lot more than just one person to storm the U.S. Capitol, and I think that's what you're alluding to here. But moving the mob towards breaching the Capitol was an effort by hundreds who broke into the building to overwhelm security at the U.S. Capitol. So, but yeah, you're talking about the split in our poll here. Let's get to the split in our poll, and I think we're up to about 10,000 or so. Yeah, we're coming up on 10,000 votes. Should Twitter join Facebook in banning President Trump's account until January 20th? 54% say no, 46% say yes. This is now trending a little bit more towards no, but again, it's about 4,500 people who say yes, 5,200 people that say no. So it's a split issue here, as you would expect from a poll that has a political undertone to it. But regardless, this is I think what I'm trying to say here is that this poll, as much as it matters, in a lot of ways, it doesn't matter. The clock is now ticking on President Trump's administration. His 4-year term in the White House will be concluded here in just a little bit, in less than 2 weeks from now, when Biden is inaugurated. Regardless of the Facebook ban, the Twitter ban, January 20th is when we're going to have an inauguration for President-elect Joe Biden. Again, set to speak here momentarily. Let's just flash this up here on your screen, just remind you. And if we put away our poll results here, you'll see moments away from hearing from the President-elect of the United States. And if we hit the touch screen again and go full screen, or split screen here, rather, you can see that they're also setting up, members of the media are setting up to hear from House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. So we're going to step away here, folks, on WFLA Now, and we're going to get ready for both of these press conferences getting underway. Again, for those of you joining us on WFLA's Facebook page, I see that we have a YouTube audience. Let's give a shout out to some of our YouTube audience that's joining us here as well. Armand, the Mariam, Insanity Boys, Kevin, Classic, to all of our YouTube audience, appreciate you joining us here as well, here live on WFLA Now. You can, of course, follow us here on WFLA social media accounts. You can also get the very latest on what's happening in Tampa Bay, what's happening in Florida, what's happening really around the world, including in our nation's capital, and all the political drama that we've had unfold there. All of it on WFLA.com and the WFLA app. And for those of you, our viewers joining us here on Facebook Live, again, you can click on the follow button and you can follow us here on WFLA's Facebook page, where we routinely try to have back and forth conversations with you. We try to do hashtag HeyJB, hashtag HeyEvan, and hashtag Hey whomever in our WFLA Now Stream Center. Whoever's joining us, we try to hear from you using those hashtags. So we appreciate you joining us here. We will be back here momentarily. What was that? 2 minutes till Biden? All right, folks. Joe Biden speaking here momentarily. Let's get to it. It's starting in about 90 or so seconds, 2 minutes to 90 seconds. Okay, I'm being told 90 seconds away from President-elect Joe Biden speaking here live. Coverage continues on WFLA Now.
Please sit down. Thank you. You're all going to have a lot of questions, but I want to focus on the issue today, the judiciary, as well as we're talking about the Attorney General's office. And so I'll have plenty of time to ask the questions I know you desperately want to ask about everything from the 25th Amendment on, but I'm not going to speak to that today. I want this to be the issue that we focus on because I think it's so important. Yesterday, in my view, one of the darkest days in the history of our nation. An unprecedented assault on our democracy. An assault literally on the citadel of liberty in the United States Capitol itself. An assault on the rule of law. An assault on the most sacred of American undertakings, ratifying the will of the people in choosing the leadership of their government. All of us here grieve the loss of life, grieve the desecration of the people's house. But what we witnessed yesterday was not dissent, it was not disorder, it was not protest, it was chaos. They weren't protesters. Don't dare call them protesters. They were a riotous mob, insurrectionists, domestic terrorists. It's that basic, it's that simple. And I wish we could say we couldn't see it coming. But that isn't true. We could see it coming. The past 4 years, we've had a president who's made his contempt for our democracy, our Constitution, the rule of law, clear in everything he has done. He unleashed an all-out assault on our institutions of our democracy from the outset. And yesterday was but the culmination of that unrelenting attack. He's attacked the free press, who dared to question his power, repeatedly calling the free press the enemy of the people. Language, at the time he first used it, I and others said, has long been used by autocrats and dictators all over the world to hold on to power, the enemy of the people. Language that is being used now by autocrats and dictators across the world, only this time with the imperator of an outgoing president of the United States of America. He's attacked our intelligence services, who dared tell the American people the truth about the effort of a foreign power to elect him 4 years ago, choosing instead to believe the word of Vladimir Putin over the word of those who've sworn their allegiance to this nation, many of whom had risked their lives in the service of this nation. He deployed the United States military, tear-gassing peaceful protesters in pursuit of a photo opportunity in the service of his re-election, even holding the Bible upside down. The action that led to an apology from the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff and an outspoken denunciation of the use of military for domestic political purposes from scores of former military leaders and secretaries of defense, led by Secretary Cheney. He thought he could stack the courts with friendly judges who would support him no matter what. They were Trump judges, his judges. He went so far as to say he needed 9 justices on the Supreme Court because he thought the election would end up in the Supreme Court and they would hand him the election. He was stunned, truly stunned, when the judges he appointed didn't do his bidding, instead acted with integrity, following the Constitution, upholding the rule of law, not just once or twice or 3 times, but over 60 times. Let me say it, over 60 times. In more than 60 cases, in state after state after state. And then at the Supreme Court, as judges, including people considered, quote, his judges, Trump judges, use his words, looked at the allegations that Trump was making and determined they were without any merit. Nothing was judged to put this election in question or doubt by any of these judges. You want to understand the importance of democratic institutions in this country? Take a look at the judiciary in this nation. Take a look at the pressure it was just subjected to by a sitting president of the United States of America. At every level, the judiciary rose to the moment during this election, did its job, acted with complete fairness and impartiality, with complete honor and integrity. When history looks back in this moment that we've just passed through, I believe it will say our democracy survived in no small part because of the men and women who represent an independent judiciary in this nation. We owe them a deep, deep debt of gratitude. And then there's the attack on the Department of Justice, treating the Attorney General as his personal lawyer and the department as his personal law firm. Through it all, we would hear the same thing from this president. My generals, my judges, my Attorney General. And then yesterday, a culmination of an attack on our institutions of democracy. This time, the Congress itself, inciting a mob to attack the Capitol, to threaten elected representatives of the people of this nation, and even the Vice President, to stop the Congress from ratifying the will of the American people and a silence the voices of nearly 160 million Americans who summoned the courage in the face of a pandemic that threatened their health and their lives to cast that sacred ballot. I made it clear from the moment I entered this race that what I believe was at stake. I said there was nothing less at stake than who we are as a nation, what we stand for, what we believe, what we will be. At the center of that belief is one of the oldest principles this nation has long held. We are a government of laws, not of men, not of the people, of laws. I said it many times in the campaign. Our democratic institutions are not relics of another age. They're what sets this nation apart. They're the guardrails of our democracy. And there's no president. That's why there is no president who is a king. No Congress that's a House of Lords. A judiciary doesn't serve the will of the president or exist to protect him or her. We have three co-equal branches of government. Co-equal. Our president is not above the law. Justice serves the people. It doesn't protect the powerful. Justice is blind. What we saw yesterday in plain view was another violation of the fundamental tenet of this nation. Not only do we see the failure to protect one of the three branches of our government, we also saw a clear failure to carry out equal justice. I'm not sure if you used to say in the Senate, excuse a point of personal privilege. A little over an hour and a half after the chaos started, I got a text from my granddaughter, Finnegan Biden, who's a senior in her last semester at the University of Pennsylvania. She sent me a photo of military people in full military gear, scores of them lining the steps of the Lincoln Memorial because of protests by Black Lives Matter. She said, "Pop, this isn't fair. No one can tell me that if had been a group of Black Lives Matter protesting yesterday, they wouldn't have been treated very, very differently than the mob of thugs that stormed the Capitol. We all know that's true. And it is unacceptable, totally unacceptable. The American people saw it in plain view, and I hope it sensitized them to what we have to do. Not many people know it. When Justice Garland and I were talking, we talked about, I think he raised it, the reason for the Justice Department was formed in the first place. It was back in 1870. We didn't have a Justice Department before that, the cabinet. It was formed in 1870 to enforce the Civil Rights Amendment that grew out of the Civil War, the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments, to stand up to the Klan, to stand up to racism, to take on domestic terrorism. This original spirit must again guide and animate its work. So as we stand here today, we do so in the wake of yesterday's events that could not more have vividly demonstrated some of the most important work we have to do in this nation. Committing ourselves to the rule of law in this nation, invigorating our domestic and democratic institutions, carrying out equal justice under the law in America. There is no more important place for us to do this work than the Department of Justice that has been so politicized. There's no more important people to carry out this work than the people I'm announcing today. More than anything, we need to restore the honor, the integrity, the independence of the Department of Justice in this nation that's been so badly damaged. And so many former leaders of that department in both parties have so testified and stated that. I want to be clear to those who lead this department who you will serve. You won't work for me. You are not the president or the vice president's lawyer. Your loyalty is not to me. It's to the law, the Constitution, the people of this nation, to guarantee justice. For Attorney General of the United States, I nominate a man of impeccable integrity, Judge Merrick Garland, one of the most respected jurists of our time, brilliant yet humble, distinguished yet modest, full of character and decency. The Supreme Court clerk served in the Justice Department during the Carter, Bush 41, and Clinton administrations, where he embraced the department's core values of independence and integrity. A federal prosecutor who took on terrorism and corruption and violent crime, always with the utmost professionalism and the duty to the oath he swore. Nominated by President Clinton to be a judge on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals, considered the second most powerful court in America. Throughout such a long and distinguished career, Judge Garland has earned the praise and admiration of members of bench and bar and politicians of both parties. And despite his busy schedule and prestigious positions, he still makes time to volunteer regularly, tutoring students in Northeast D.C., as he's done for 20 years. It's about character. It's about character. It was no surprise why President Obama nominated him, Judge Garland, to the Supreme Court. As I said, he embodies honor, decency, integrity, fidelity to the rule of law, and judicial independence. To those same traits, he will now bring, as Attorney General of the United States, not as a personal attorney to the president, but as the people's lawyer. He'll restore trust in the rule of law and equal justice under the law. And I fully expect, in discussions I've had, that he will receive a fair hearing and swift confirmation. And once he's confirmed, I will move promptly to nominate his replacement on the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals. And I expect that the distinguished nominee will receive a prompt and fair hearing as well. For Deputy Attorney General, I nominate one of the most selfless people I've worked with, one of the brightest I've worked with. And I worked with her during the last administration. A 15-year veteran of the Justice Department, Lisa Monaco. Lisa knows the department inside and out. She is a definition of what a public servant should be: decent, trusted, honorable. And I might add, I embarrassed her a moment ago with the other colleagues, and selfless. I offered her other positions that are of greater consequence, quote unquote, more prestige. But she wanted to work with you, Judge. She wanted to go back to the Justice Department. A top-flight prosecutor who took on public corruption, corporate fraud, and violent crime. Chief of Staff to the Director of the FBI, the first woman ever confirmed as Assistant Attorney General for National Security, where she elevated cybersecurity to a top priority, and where it's even more consequential today than it was then. At the White House, she was the top Homeland Security and counterterrorism advisor to President Obama and me in every one of the national security meetings. She coordinated our fight against al-Qaeda and ISIL. She helped lead our response to the Ebola crisis. When the bombs went off at the finish line on Patriots' Day in Boston, her hometown, she coordinated the federal government's response with local and state law enforcement to get to the bottom of this horrible tragedy. Lisa, I know you will help restore integrity and independence of the Department of Justice that you so revere. As Associate Attorney General, the number 3 job at the department, I nominate Vanita Gupta, a woman I've known for some time, one of the most respected civil rights lawyers in America. Started her career at the NAACP Legal Defense Fund, then on to the ACLU, both organizations to which I belong, and then to the Justice Department during the Obama-Biden administration, where she led the Civil Rights Division. At every step, with every case, she fought for greater equity and the right to right the wrongs of a justice system where they existed. And she's done so by bringing people together, earning praise from across the ideological spectrum for her approach to solving some of the thorniest problems we face. During the Obama-Biden administration, Vanita was put in charge of investigating the abuse of power in police departments in Ferguson, Missouri, and other communities torn apart by acts of violence and racial injustice. She helped institute common-sense police reforms to build greater equity, safety, and trust. She was commended for her work by both law enforcement and those advocating for changes in the criminal justice system. That's a rare achievement, and it speaks volumes about her capacity to unite people in common purpose, which is what this is all about, uniting the American people. Born in Philadelphia, a proud daughter of immigrants from India. That sound familiar? If confirmed, Vanita will be the first woman of color to serve as Associate Attorney General. And I'm grateful that Vanita is leaving her current job, leading one of the premier civil rights organizations in the world, as she answers the call to serve once again to ensure that our justice system is even more fair and more equitable. Thank you. For Assistant Attorney General for Civil Rights, I nominate Kristen Clark, who has spent her career advocating for greater equality and equity in our justice system. The daughter of Jamaican immigrants. Now, don't think this has been designed here. I'm still looking for an Irishman. All kidding aside, the daughter of Jamaican immigrants, Kristen, is also one of the most distinguished civil rights attorneys in America. proud native of Brooklyn, New York, she began her career, her legal career, in the very same office she's now nominated to lead. Her previous tenure with the Justice Department saw her take on some of the most complex civil rights cases, from voting rights to redistricting challenges to prosecuting hate crimes and human trafficking. She's earned accolades throughout her career, including as the head of the Civil Rights Bureau for her home state of New York, where she's led the charge to end the school-to-prison pipeline and root out discrimination in housing and in law enforcement. She currently leads one of the nation's top civil rights organizations, where she promotes greater equity in voting rights, in our education system, in our housing system, in our justice system, and so much more. Now, she'll return full circle to pursue the vital work where her career began. The Civil Rights Division represents the moral center of the Department of Justice and the heart of that fundamental American ideal that we're all created equal and all deserve to be treated equally. I'm honored you've accepted the call to return to make real the promise for all Americans. To each of you, I thank you for your service, and to your families. And to the American people, this is a team that will restore your trust and faith in our institutions of democracy. I chaired the Judiciary Committee for many years. One of my goals in running in the first place, you may recall, I said when I saw those people coming out of the fields in Charlottesville, shouting hate, a young woman killed. And when asked, the president said there are good people on both sides. That's literally why I ran. So there's no more important and heartfelt effort on my part than restoring the independence and integrity of our Justice Department. So may God bless you all. May God protect our troops and those who are sworn to protect the American people. Now I will turn it over to the team, starting with the next Attorney to the United States, Attorney General of the United States, Judge Merrick Garland. Thank you.
Thank you, President-elect Biden, Vice President-elect Harris, for asking me to serve as the Attorney General of the United States. Thanks always to my wife, children, sisters, late parents, without whose unstinting support I would not be standing here today. Thanks also to my grandparents, whose decision to undertake the difficult journey to America made all things possible for my family. If confirmed, I look forward to working with these wonderful DOJ veterans, Lisa Monaco, Vanita Gupta, and Kristen Clark. Entering the Department of Justice will be a kind of homecoming for me. My very first job after serving as a judicial law clerk was to work as a special assistant to then Attorney General Ben Civiletti. Ed Levy and Griffin Bell, the first attorneys general appointed after Watergate, had enunciated the norms that would ensure the department's adherence to the rule of law. Attorney General Civiletti undertook to continue their work of crafting those norms into written policies. Those policies included guaranteeing the independence of the department from partisan influence in law enforcement investigations, regulating communications with the White House, establishing guidelines for FBI investigations, ensuring respect for the professionalism of DOJ's lawyers and agents, and setting out principles to guide the exercise of prosecutorial discretion. Those policies became part of the DNA of every career lawyer and agent. If confirmed, my mission as Attorney General will be to reaffirm those policies as the principles upon which the department operates. As Ed Levy said at his own swearing in, nothing can more weaken the quality of life or more imperil the realization of the goals we all hold dear than our failure to make clear by words and deed that our law is not the instrument of partisan purpose. In the decades that followed my first tour of duty at the department, I returned again and again in different roles. As a career line assistant U.S. attorney, as a criminal division supervisor, and finally as a senior official in the Office of the Deputy Attorney General. In the latter role, I worked with every component of the department on issues ranging from civil rights and antitrust to domestic terrorism and national security. I also worked directly with line prosecutors and agents in offices from Oklahoma City to Billings, Montana, from Sacramento, California to New York City. Attorney General, later Supreme Court Justice Robert Jackson famously said, "The citizen's safety lies in the prosecutor who tempers zeal with human kindness, who seeks truth and not victims, who serves the law and not factional purposes, and who approaches his job with humility." That was the kind of prosecutor I tried to be during my years of service at DOJ. In 1997, I left the department to serve the cause of justice in another role. As a judge, I have loved being a judge. But to serve as Attorney General at this critical time, to lead the more than 113,000 dedicated men and women who work at the department to ensure the rule of law, is a calling I am honored and eager to answer. As everyone who watched yesterday's events in Washington now understands, if they did not understand before, the rule of law is not just some lawyer's turn of phrase. It is the very foundation of our democracy. The essence of the rule of law is that like cases are treated alike, that there not be one rule for Democrats and another for Republicans, one rule for friends, another for foes, one rule for the powerful, another for the powerless, one rule for the rich and another for the poor, or different rules depending upon one's race or ethnicity. And the essence of its great corollary, equal justice under law, is that all citizens are protected in the exercise of their civil rights. Those ideals have animated the Department of Justice since the very moment of its inception. As President-elect Biden just recounted, the department was founded in the midst of Reconstruction following the Civil War, with its first principal task to ensure compliance with the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments. As historian Ron Chernow wrote, quote, "The new Justice Department would forge its identity in the battle to slay the first incarnation of the Ku Klux Klan and its offshoots. In that battle, the department successfully deployed its considerable resources to ensure civil rights, which were under militant attack." These principles, ensuring the rule of law and making the promise of equal justice under law real, are the great principles upon which the Department of Justice was founded and for which it must always stand. They echo today in the priorities that lie before us, from ensuring racial equity in our justice system to meeting the evolving threat of violent extremism. If confirmed, those are the principles to which I will be devoted as Attorney General. President-elect Biden understands this. As he said today and as he has publicly said before, quote, "It's not my Justice Department, it's the people's Justice Department." He promised that the person he chose to lead the department would have the, quote, "independent capacity to decide who gets prosecuted and who doesn't." Vice President-elect Harris has also publicly stated, quote, "Any decision coming out of the Justice Department should be based on facts, it should be based on the law, it should not be based on politics, period." I could not agree more. And I would not have agreed to be considered for Attorney General under any other conditions. So thank you both for giving me the opportunity to serve.
Mr. President-elect, Madam Vice President-elect, rises to a different level of security protection. We want every day at the Capitol to be deemed a national security event so that there's no, well, I didn't know, and blah, blah, blah. That highest level of concern, intelligence seeking, redundancy if necessary to protect. We've been working a long time on the inauguration, and just in terms of coronavirus, another shortcoming of the president, people have died because of his denial, distortion, and the rest, calling it a hoax. This man is deadly to our democracy and to our people. But get to your point, so because of coronavirus, in our meetings on the intelligence, on the inauguration, as far as we have jurisdiction in the Congress, but then it becomes the purview of the presidential now designee, Joe Biden. But to the point that we have that, the decision was encouraged to just have a very small inauguration. I don't want to make, I don't know what is in the public domain on it, but I'm not going to put that out there, except that it would be very small and hopefully have a celebration at some later time when we're not coronavirus sensitive. Now, on top of that, to see what happened yesterday, if there's any, I don't want to use the word benefit because nothing could justify, but if there's anything learned about it is that we have to be very, very careful because these people and their leader, Donald Trump, do not care about the security of people. They don't care about our democracy. They don't care about the peaceful transfer of power. Something is very, very wrong here. Now, let me just say one more thing about what he did yesterday and relating to other national security events. People saw throughout the world something that looked like it was out of a banana republic or some other kind of a third world where the president of the country turned on the people, And what was sad about it is, of course, as members of Congress, we sign up. We sign up for the exposure that we have. But to see in the eyes of so many of the staff people, especially the younger ones, the trauma, the fright that it was for them to be locked into rooms with terrorists banging on the doors, hiding under desks, under tables, and the rest of that. They didn't sign up for that. We didn't sign them up for that. A blessing to be interested in public service, to learn from it here, perhaps to go on into public service, but to carry that important value into whatever they do in life. But to meet with them and to see how frightened they were, how traumatized they were, because these thugs, these Trump thugs, decided that they would desecrate the Capitol with no thought of what harm they might do physically, psychologically, or in any other way. And they will be prosecuted. And they will be prosecuted. Justice will be done. So in terms of the inauguration, I don't know if it could be made any smaller, but I don't trust whatever the president might have in mind, because I do not trust, because I think he's a very dangerous man. So again, we'll review what our options are in terms of the 25th Amendment, review what our options are. If he wants to be unique and be doubly impeached, that's kind of up to him and his cabinet as to whether he should stay in office. Impeached, defeated, impeached, gone. And it's really a sad tragedy for our country. I say I pray for the president every day, and I do. Last night was the hardest day for me. Night, like 5 o'clock in the morning when I finally got home, as I was praying at night, you got to keep praying for me. You've got to keep praying for me. Maybe there's some hope. But we can't take that chance because people's lives are at stake as well as our democracy. That's it for now. Thank you.
Madam Speaker, is the president welcome at the inauguration? Do you want him to come?
House Speaker Nancy Pelosi offering comments after the day of turmoil yesterday in our nation's capital. We're going to be bringing you to press conferences around Washington, D.C. as they occur here today, this Thursday, January 7th. Let's get you back now to the DOJ nominations, the President-elect Joe Biden press conference. Let's listen in.
Defend the Constitution, enforce our federal laws, and seek to create a more perfect union with deep integrity and without political interference. There are many agencies in the federal government, but actually only one that bears the name of a value. By virtue of that name, that value of justice, we know the department carries a unique charge and North Star. At its best, it is the keeper of a sacred promise. It's the promise of equal justice for all, that no one is above the law. And when this promise is pursued with vigor, it brings light to our nation and serves as a beacon to the world. But when abandoned, we degrade our democracy and sow the division that we've come to know all too well. The first time I felt the absence of that promise was as a 4-year-old child, one of my earliest memories. My parents were proud immigrants from India, an opportunity that was made possible by the Civil Rights Movement and the 1965 Immigration and Nationality Act. One day I was sitting in a McDonald's restaurant with my sister, mother, and grandmother. And as we ate our meals, a group of skinheads at the next table began shouting ethnic slurs at us, throwing food at us until we had to leave the restaurant. It is an early memory, but one that is seared in my mind. That feeling never left me, of what it means to be made to feel unsafe because of who you are. I kept another feeling with me, though, too, and that is one that has been ingrained in me by my parents and shared by my husband.
We're now going to take you over, folks, to Senator Lindsey Graham, who is going to be speaking here. The DOJ nomination press conference continues online here, but we're going to get over to Senator Lindsey Graham offering remarks here on the left side of your screen. Let's listen in.
So as you can imagine, everybody in politics and at the federal level was asked a lot of questions by people in the media. What was yesterday like? What does it all mean? Rather than doing a bunch of interviews, I thought I'd give my view of what happened yesterday and the way forward for the country, and try to get back to South Carolina and help the transition here. The first thing that stands out to me is how embarrassed and disgusted I am that the United States Capitol could be taken over by domestic terrorists while we're in session, transferring power from one president to the other, that a band of people who are terrorists, not patriots, literally occupied the floor of the House, drove the Senate out of its chamber. And the question for the country is, how could that happen 20 years after 9/11? September this year will be the 20th anniversary of the attack on our nation. It is mind-boggling that such an event could occur. Senator Schumer's call for the Sergeant of Arms of the Senate to resign. I echo that. Anyone in charge of defending the Capitol failed in their duties. If they would have been in the military, they would have been relieved of their commands and most likely court-martialed. So the first thing that has to happen is to hold those accountable for failing to defend the nation's capital while the Congress was in session. Why am I worried? It would have been so easy for a terrorist organization to infiltrate this movement. The lone wolf terrorist, I think we've got a pretty good grip on. But political protest in this country is the heart and soul of who we are. But we haven't been protesting lately. We've been burning down cities. We've been attacking federal courthouses. We've been looting in the name of social justice. And now we've occupied the Capitol. This needs to stop. To my Democratic colleagues, I share your disgust and embarrassment and determination to make sure that what happened in our Capitol never happens again. But you need to speak up when this happens in other places. Lawlessness in one place breeds lawlessness everywhere. When one cause resorts to violence and people are not prosecuted, other causes believe maybe this is okay. So the mistake we made is when people tried to destroy the courthouse in Portland, they weren't prosecuted to the full extent of the law. When they occupied Seattle, they weren't prosecuted to the full extent of the law. When they attacked the acceptance of the nomination by President Trump here in D.C., virtually no one was prosecuted. It's good to hear everybody wanting prosecutions. Some are late to the dance. I was there from day one. So let's reset and move forward until every political movement out there, no matter how just your cause in your own mind, using violence will not advance your cause. It will only lead to your personal incarceration, or if you go too far, to injury. So what am I calling for? I'm calling for a joint task force to be assembled and spend all the time and money necessary to identify every person who breached the security of the Capitol, who occupied the chambers, who invaded offices and destroyed property. There's a ton of video evidence out there. I was interviewed this morning by 2 FBI agents. They came to my house wanting to know if I had any surveillance cameras outside my house. I did not, but I'm encouraged they're on the case. Trust me, in the social media world that exists today, it won't be that hard to find thousands of people who took the law in their own hands. The people sitting in the chairs need to be sitting in a jail cell. The people who attacked the Capitol Police need to be charged with attacking a police officer. Sedition may be a charge for some of these people. So I will, for the next 6 years, God willing, every week ask of the Department of Justice, starting with this Department of Justice and the next Department of Justice, what kind of progress are you making in holding those accountable, the domestic terrorists who took over the House and the Senate chambers and laid waste to Capitol Hill? What do you need that you don't have? If you need more prosecutors, money will not be an object. If you need more investigators, will provide you the resources. This is a moment for the nation to show will and determination, to be a nation of laws, that anarchy shall not reign, the Constitution controls, not the mob. Yesterday, I was proud of Senator McConnell, the Republican leader of the Senate, who stood up and called for a peaceful transfer of power to Vice President Biden and Kamala Harris. Like Senator McConnell, I supported President Trump. I've become close to the president personally. I think his president has been consequential from a conservative point of view. It has been an amazing 4 years in terms of judges, securing the border, a vaccine in record time, deregulating the economy, cutting taxes, historic Mideast peace agreements, the destruction of the caliphate, on and on and on, was tarnished by yesterday. When it comes to accountability, the president needs to understand that his actions were the problem, not the solution. That the rally yesterday was unseemly, it got out of hand, and a good friend of mine, Rudy Giuliani, did not help. I said on the floor of the Senate, I cast my vote accordingly, that Joe Biden is the legitimate president-elect of the United States. Are there irregularities in this election? Yes, I'm sure they are. Have they been overblown? Absolutely. There's been a constant effort by people from the president's legal team to provide misinformation, to distort the facts, to make accusations that cannot be proven. That needs to stop. As to the 25th Amendment being invoked, I do not believe that's appropriate at this point. I'm looking for a peaceful transfer of power. I'm looking for the next 14 days to reset, and we will hand off power in a traditional sense by it being a peaceful transfer. I talked to Mark Meadows this morning. The transition is going well. It is fully in place. I talked to the President's legal counsel, Pat Cipollone. He is doing everything he can to help the transfer occur. As to these two gentlemen, most Americans will never know the service that Mark Meadows and Pat Cipollone and those under their charge provided to this country over the last year. Talked to Secretary Mnuchin today, who's in Israel. No one will fully understand what he and others have brought to the table. So to those who believe you should leave your post now to make a statement, I would urge you not. To Robert O'Brien, you've been getting a good counsel to the president. You've been a steady hand. I've been missing your phone calls. Robert, stay on. To those in the national security apparatus, we need you now more than ever. So I embrace Joe Manchin's statement. I talked to Joe this morning. He has called for those around the president to stay in place to ensure that we can have a peaceful, efficient transfer of power. Why do I say that Joe Biden is the legitimate president of the United States? Because he got the most votes. The state certified him the winner, enough to get over 300 electoral votes, and all you need is 270. To my colleagues who objected yesterday, you didn't do anything illegal. The law allows you to do what you did. I respect your ability to do it. I disagreed with what you were trying to do. One member of my conference said we can't turn a blind eye to the problems in this election. I will tell the American people, there has not been a blind eye turned. The allegations about the law being broken in Wisconsin, that they changed election law contrary to the Wisconsin Constitution because of COVID, was litigated by the Wisconsin Supreme Court. They ruled 4-3 that what happened was legal. Al Gore accepted a 5-4 decision by the U.S. Supreme Court to end his litigation to be President of the United States. My job is not to overturn the Wisconsin Supreme Court. The allegations about the consent decree in Georgia changing Georgia law unconstitutionally were litigated in federal court, and the Trump team lost. The people on the campaign legal team have made accusations without sufficient proof. They have been more the problem than the solution. They have claimed that 66,000 people in Georgia voted under 18. I have not found one person. They have claimed that 8,000 felons voted from prison in Arizona. I've asked for a list of names and received none. This needs to end. A blind eye was not turned. The outcome that was reached was disappointing to those of us who supported the president, but it was done through the lawful process of challenging courts, court challenges, and actually having hearings with the legislative bodies of these swing states. Not one judge anywhere in the land accepted the accusations to be legitimate, and not one legislative body in the states in question decided to change the certification after hearing the accusations. The Congress' job is not to overturn elections that we disagree with. The Congress's job is to count the votes sent in by the states that were lawfully certified and declare the one with the most votes the winner, President and Vice President. As to Mike Pence, in this debacle of the last week or so, there's one person to me that stands out above all others, and that is Vice President Mike Pence. The things said about him, the things he was asked to do in the name of loyalty were over the top, unconstitutional, illegal, and would have been wrong for the country. Mike Pence faithfully fulfilled the duty assigned to any vice president to count the votes and declare the winner. To those who would wish that the Vice President of the United States could send electoral votes back to the states because they believe fraud was involved, be careful what you wish for. Do you really believe it's good in America for a single person to have that power? Do you think the 12th Amendment gives that power? Absolutely not. So what's so disappointing to me is that people who have prided themselves on being constitutional conservatives were pushing this bizarre theory. So I just want every Republican to know that in my view, limited government applies when you don't like the outcome just as much as when limited government applies and you do like the outcome. The Constitution needs to be followed as written, even though you wish you could do something the Constitution does not allow to get your way. That's the very essence of activism. To those who were pushing the idea that Vice President Pence had the power to unilaterally set aside certified electoral votes from a single state or send them back, you have cheapened the idea of constitutional conservatism. So when asked to do something against conservative values that would be harmful to the nation, Mike Pence said no. Other people chose this moment to advance their personal causes. I have found in this job over time, moments like this come back to haunt you if you're doing something you shouldn't be doing. So, January the 20th, I intend to be there. I am hoping that President Trump will allow his team to continue to work closely with the Biden transition team to transfer power peacefully. That President Trump will focus on some of the achievements he has accomplished, remind the country of the consequential presidency he has had, accept that he fell short and a new president will be coming, and to turn down the rhetoric and allow us as a nation to heal and move forward. To my Democratic colleagues, I ask the same of you. That I'll take questions.
Senator Graham, you were one of President Trump's biggest critics during the 2016 election. And he became one of his biggest supporters. Do you have any regrets in your support of him and what this has led to at this moment?
No. I was a opponent of President Trump, and I got beat like a drum. I didn't scratch. I had a decision to make. I said everything I could think about regarding him as a candidate. The people of South Carolina spoke. He won my state and he became President of the United States. So I decided then it's not about me, it's about my job as being a senator from South Carolina. People from South Carolina wanted me to work with this president, and I did. I did the same with Obama. I'll do the same with Biden. But this is a Republican president. He changed my opinion of who he was through his actions.
His actions yesterday, though, and helped incite a mob riot.
Just let me get there. The reason I've been close to the president is I think he's done tremendous things for this country. I think the judges he has nominated have been outstanding choices, and we saw yesterday an independent judiciary. I think people like Bill Barr were the best people in the country to be Attorney General at the time they were. I think what he did to destroy the caliphate was long overdue. It makes it safer. I think getting out of the Iran nuclear agreement has led the way to peace between the Arabs and the Israelis at a level I would have never imagined. I think he's brought order to the border. He listened to me. He asked my advice about judges. When I got upset about Syria, he listened, and he actually changed his policies. I could never get Obama to do that. Obama had a good relationship with him, but with Senator McCain, we begged him, do not leave Iraq. But he did. As to yesterday, it breaks my heart that my friend, a president of a consequence, would allow yesterday to happen. And it will be a major part of his presidency. It was a self-inflicted wound. It was going too far. And here's the one thing I can say. The next 2 weeks can begin to right the ship depending on how the president behaves. And over time, his presidency will be viewed in a fuller context. I have absolutely no regrets of helping this president make us safer, more prosperous. I've enjoyed my relationship with him. I say these things not because of animosity. I say these things because I have to.
But Senator Graham, after being so close to this president for 4 years, do you think that you and other Republicans had more of a responsibility to speak out, both privately and publicly, when he said things that were untrue, when he ginned up his base? Do you think that that would have made a difference yesterday?
I think the Trump presidency has been poorly covered by people in your business. I think that from the time he took office, there's been an effort to cover his presidency in a way that I think is not helpful to the country. I have spoken up. There has been an effort to believe everything that Trump did was wrong before it's proven or not. All I can say is that I have shared my thoughts with the president. I've spoken out when I thought I should. But the one thing that I want you to know, there are plenty of Republicans believe that the Trump presidency was never legitimate in the eyes of the Democratic Party, never accepted by the people in your business, and it's been a constant drumbeat. And I think that's taken a toll on all of us. So could I have done better? Yes. The question, could you have done better? Could those of you who cover the White House done better? You need to ask yourself that.
Senator Graham, can I just follow up on that? Senator Graham, do you mind if I just follow up on that really quickly? You didn't acknowledge Joe Biden as president of this United States for a month and a half. Didn't that contribute to the notion among Trump's supporters that this was stolen
I think that is exactly the problem. Did anybody doubt that Vice President Gore, did you ask any Democrat, why don't you acknowledge that Vice President Gore lost? You waited till the results were in of the litigation.
But this was a very different situation.
No, it's not. No, it's a president going to court, challenging results. From the time the race was called, I was hounded Why don't you say Biden won? You wanted me to declare Biden the winner before President Trump had the right to go to court and exercise the same rights other presidents have had, and I chose not to do that. I said last night, Joe Biden is the president. He won. The Constitution worked.
Senator, you just said that Vice President Pence was asked to do things that were illegal and
Yes.
unconstitutional.
Yes.
He was asked to do those things by the president publicly. So why shouldn't the 25th Amendment be used if the president asked the vice president to do things that were illegal and unconstitutional?
Yeah, I think what the president was asking of the vice president was not constitutionally allowed. He had people who said that he could do it. The fault lies, I think, with some of the legal advice around him. You've had people in his legal team make claims that are just beyond the pale. The president's frustrated. He thought he was cheated. Nobody's ever going to convince him that he wasn't. But this idea of asking the vice president to use his powers to send back electors that were certified doesn't exist in the Constitution.
He's the president. Like,
Yeah.
shouldn't the buck stop somewhere else?
Back to your answer on the 25th Amendment, you said it would not be appropriate to invoke that right now. Do you trust the president not to incite the kind of violence that he promoted yesterday in the next 2 weeks?
I'm hoping he won't. I'm hoping that he will allow Mark Meadows to continue with the transition, that he will start talking more about what he's done as president, focus on the threats we have coming from Iran, finish out the next 14 days in a way that will allow us to get a good start for Vice President Biden, that it does him no good, in my view now, to continue to attack the legitimacy of the election, because this election was legitimate and it has now been decided constitutionally. So my hope is that we can move forward in the next 14 days, but this will depend on what the president does. I am hopeful that the worst is behind us and we can transfer power on January 20th.
Senator, what gives you that hope? Have you spoken to him?
I
about
talked
any
with
assurance?
some people this morning. That seems to be a belief that we're moving in the right direction, and I'm just trying to reinforce that. The people around him, I think, have the right attitude. The people around him, I think, are giving him good advice. It's up to the president to take it. And again, you asked me about my relationship with the president. I regret it not one bit. I think we've had a hell of a ride. We've done some great things for the country. I hate it ends this way.
Senator, do you believe that the events of yesterday, his campaign event, have disqualified the president from seeking the office again in the future?
I'm not worried about the next election. I'm worried about getting through the next 14 days. We'll talk about 2022 and 2024. Let's get Vice President Biden sworn in January the 20th, and I'll make an observation politically. If you're a Republican, been a tough couple of weeks. We lost Georgia. 2 good candidates fell short. I'm confident that, from what I hear, the Democrats are going to overreach. If we can regroup, rebuild ourselves, get away from the fiery rhetoric and the conspiracy theories, that we'll have a chance in 2022 to take back the Senate and take back the House, but it's going to require us to go back to the blocking and tackling of conservative politics.
Sir, can you respond to the Democrats? They're not only talking about the 25th Amendment, both Leader Schumer and Speaker Pelosi have used the word, talked about impeachment, pursuing impeachment. Can you just respond to what response would be from Republicans if they did that?
I don't remember either one of them speaking up a whole lot during other crises. I mean, I like them both, but when they were burning Portland down in Seattle, they never said a word. When they were attacking Rand Paul, they never said a word. The guy that sort of stood out to me was Joe Biden. I thought Joe Biden did a really good job yesterday of talking about how bad this is and we need to get it behind us. And I'm telling you, as a Republican, I don't support an effort to invoke the 25th Amendment now. If something else happens, all options would be on the table. But I hear from Schumer and Pelosi just political talk.
Senator, what kind of role do you think that President Trump should take in the next 13 days? Should he be more public? He's been banned from some suspended from some social media platforms. And what kind of role would you like to see Vice President Pence play?
Well, I'd like to see President Trump help unify the country. I don't know if he's going to come to the inauguration. It's up to him. I wish he would. I wish he would come and acknowledge that the transfer of powers has occurred, but that'll be up to President Trump. He shouldn't come unless he feels like it's the right thing to do for the country. Things like that would go a long way. I think he should talk about what he's done. I think he should focus on some policy achievements and basically let the Biden administration know that I have secured the border. Here's how I've secured it. If you change these policies, we're going to go back to chaos. I think he should talk about how we've gotten all these peace agreements between the Arabs and the Israelis. That's by being tough on Iran. I think he should explain to the American people the successes of his policies, and that not only will be helpful to Vice President Biden, soon to be President Biden, but he will have a responsibility if he changes those policies. If I were the president, I would highlight what I've been able to do at the border and explain to the Biden administration this worked. How did we get these peace agreements between these Arab nations and Israel? How can you do more?
Why do you think he can't do that? Do you believe, after spending so much time with him, that he is mentally unwell, as some of his aides have said?
No, I think he's very frustrated. He thinks the election was stolen. I think he's got some very bad advisors around him that push ideas that are not sound. I think the president has got good people around him now. I think Mark Meadows and Pat Cipollone and others are giving him good counsel and good advice. I am here today to answer your questions, to say what I think. I think the best thing the president can do is encourage a transition to be peaceful, to be professional, and to use the voice he has in the next 14 days to talk about his successes and to bring us together. He has a voice, and I would like him to use that voice to bring us together and to focus on his accomplishments. And we're going to soon have a new president. I promise to work with Vice President Biden to the extent I can. There's things we can do, and there are things we're not going to be able to do.
He hasn't done it the last 4 years. What makes you think he can do it in the last 14 days and bring people together?
Well, I think he has, in the last 4 years, accomplished major things. Now, in terms of a personal style, he's been divisive. All I can say is that many of us on the conservative side believe that the coverage of President Trump has been over the top. I was here during the Obama years. Good example. The Mueller investigation you covered breathlessly turned out not to be the event that it was billed to be. And when we looked at the abuse at Department of Justice and the FBI, you found it in the obituary page. That Fox, no, y'all covered it for the most part. That's a double standard. I think that the problems that Hunter Biden have, if a Trump had done those things, it'd be front page news everywhere. So there's a lot of people on my side of the aisle who believe that the president, the way he's been covered has contributed to a lot of discourse. And y'all have lost the mainstream media, conservative America, and you got to ask why.
What concerns do you have with the way that Capitol Hill police handled the protest last night, and should their $460 million budget be reviewed?
Okay, one, thank the frontline officers. How could we not be prepared? How could, in a joint session of Congress with the Vice President in the building, you not do better than this? Where were the National Guard? Black Lives Matter protest, have you seen the images on the Capitol steps where we had National Guard members in riot gear? Why weren't you as prepared this time around? Where was the Pentagon? There's all kind of stories that they were refusing to activate the D.C. National Guard. I don't believe that to be true. But what kind of intelligence gathering apparatus does the Capitol Hill Police Department and the agencies in charge of defending the Capitol have? How could they fail so miserably? We're 20 years after 9/11, right? Yesterday, they could have blown the building up. They could have killed us all. They could have destroyed the government. People coming through the windows had backpacks as big as my desk on the Senate. They should have been challenged. Warning shots should have been fired and lethal force should have been used once they penetrated the seat of government. Those backpacks could have had bombs, chemical agents, weapons. We dodged a major bullet yesterday. If this is not a wake-up call, I do not know what is. Is it a money problem? If it is, we'll fix it. Is it a leadership problem? Obviously. Is it an intel failure of the highest proportions? Absolutely. So I will end where I began. There are so many storylines for the last 48 hours. Many of them political. This one has brought us together. Bernie Sanders was as upset with what happened as I was. I was talking with Bernie about how could they come in and take over the Senate. And he said, get them out of there. To his credit, Bernie wanted a forceful response to the domestic terrorist who occupied the House and the Senate. So let's end on this note. Yesterday, the Capitol of the United States was taken over by domestic terrorists that are not patriots. They overwhelmed the Capitol Police. They destroyed the House. They took over the place and sat in the presiding officer's chair. They went through my desk, and all of us had to go to a single room to be protected. This shall never happen again. We've lost our will and our determination to stand up for law and order. And when you let a courthouse be attacked and nobody gets prosecuted, the next thing you know, it gets worse. To all the mayors out there who have discord and unlawful behavior in your city, get on top of it. I'm not a mayor. I'm a United States Senator. I accept responsibility for fixing this problem. How do you fix this problem? You adequately resource those in charge of defense. You hold those accountable. And if they fail, you fire them. And you prosecute the lawbreaker. All of these images of people sitting in these chairs, in Pelosi's speaker's chair, office chair, we know who that person is. They should go from sitting in the speaker's chair to a jail cell. Thank you.